Non desistus, non exeris. That is Latin for never give up and never surrender. Hopefully my pronunciation was on point. Otherwise, we could be in serious trouble on this podcast. Fans, employees, and players alike have all banded together to make sure that that saying is very, very nearly true of us. We've kept going in the darkest of times, and we are now, fingers crossed, everything crossed, that by the time we record an official pod next time, we will be taken over by a certain American consortium headed by Mr. Rob Couhig. That's all we can hope for currently. We are, of course, here to talk about a very, very pleasing result against Wigan on Saturday. This is episode 385 of the now Henry Winter-backed Reading FC podcast. He tweeted us.
This is the 386th. And you are right about Henry, so let's get back to that. But this is my fault, so that's why I wanted to jump in. I didn't say last week on the pod hosting that it's episode 385. So last week was episode 385. This is 386.
And this is what happens when you go on dates without me and you get other people, because like this has thrown me now. It was almost a perfect introduction. You've shot it out the water.
I've
like
absolutely shot it off. Yeah, and you've done very well here.
No.
The Latin, very nice. I wasn't expecting that at all. You were talking about Henry Winter, which it was very nice.
I was. But no, you're right. That's my bad. It's episode 386 of the Henry Winter-backed Reading FC podcast, fan-backed podcast. Oh, you know what I mean? It's not run by Reading FC. You know that. It's run by the Tilehurst End. We're the Tilehurst End. I'm Ben Thomas. You've heard Ross Webber. Let's get into the recap right now for a fantastic win against the Latics.
Come rain or shine, it's time to relive the latest match action with the recap.
This podcast is sponsored by ZCZ Films, Reading's oldest ultras.
Right, welcome to the start of episode 386. Ross did it without me last week. I told him not to. He still went ahead and did it anyway.
Right.
I got to listen to it for once, which is great, because obviously I don't normally listen to it, but I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought you were excellent, and it was always good to have Ryan on there as well. So really good to talk about a hard-earned point against. Well, it wasn't even hard-earned, was it? We were just robbed.
No, it was.
We should have won the game, but
Yeah, unlucky. Sorry, I'll let you do your mini review of Birmingham because you didn't get to say it on the pod.
I didn't. But no, it was great. I thought that game was excellent. We have got our numbers right, though, when we say that we beat Wigan 2-0 this weekend. Before we get into that, just want to say massive thanks, as always, to Valdemar and his team at ZZZ Films, who are sponsoring us yet again for this pod and every other pod that we do. Glad to have them on board, as always, with their support, financial, emotional, friendship, just consistent backing, really. And we are very, very close to having consistent backing off the field this week. But before we get into that, Ross, let's recap a lovely game, let's be honest, against Wigan. It was an absolute delight. I thought we started really, really positively, to be honest. We got the goal very, very early on with Charlie Savage. I think it was inside 10 minutes, wasn't it, that he scored? Really nice goal.
5 or 6, yeah.
It was 6 minutes. Absolutely fantastic positioning from him. But the work, and we're gonna single out players on this pod, really. The work from Big Kelvin on the left was absolutely outstanding to keep that ball alive and to knock it back to Charlie, who I think was his first goal that he has scored for us inside the penalty area. I couldn't believe that.
It's funny. I could believe that because Charlie Savage only scores screamers. But lovely finish too. And I think I wrote this in the ratings. I became more impressed by the finish and the goal as the game went on because Tickle was really, really good. Tickle made 5 saves. I know.
I'm laughing because can we just call him the goalkeeper? I know that he's obviously from a very proud lineage, but I can't have half a pod where you just constantly refer to the goalkeeper as Tickle.
Right. Anyway, Mr. Tickle in that he was beaten by Charlie Savage, and that was the point. Just real quick, one thing that was really good because we saw it a lot in preseason, and we saw it again with this goal, so it was really great to see. Like obviously, Kelvin getting to the byline and then getting the ball back is really important, and he was really good. But also the run across the front of the goal to kind of like steal both the defender and the goalkeeper's interest, and then just make that space for Charlie Savage to strike the ball cleanly. That's just as important, and it's great to see that return from preseason.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna single out some players, and we've already mentioned two of them already that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail. Ross has got some lovely graphics that he put up earlier this week, or the back end of the weekend at some point. What day is it? Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, you did it. So it was good. I liked it. We'll come to that anyway. But overall, we were incredibly dominant first half. Very wasteful, I have to say. I don't think Sam Smith had his best game at all, by his own admission, probably as well. But, we were very, very comfortable going into the water break. And then into the second period, much the same, really. Very, very composed on the ball. Very, very aggressive off it with this press that we've talked about time and time again. Bless him, Sam Smith completely fluffed his lines. Should have scored probably 2 or 3 goals on Saturday, but didn't. I don't think he'll have a game like that again where he misses those. No. But Kelvin was there to tidy up and to kind of knock it home on 57 minutes. And really the game was done and dusted by then. Delighted for Kelvin, not only because he's in the goals, but his celebration at the moment, Ross. I don't know if that's because he's really into the Alien franchise with the new release of Alien Romulus with the facehuggers, or he is a reincarnation of John Cena's celebration. He might be a big wrestling fan. Or he's just doing that for some other reason that we have absolutely no idea. But the cover in the face thing is just, I think the youngsters say it's cold. That's what they say.
Yeah, so, he's on that grind set, he's a real Sigma. I do like it. The other one it reminds me of is Dom Solanke when he pulls out that anime mask that he has, and he does that sort of like covering his face thing. But I think it is more. It is. I love
the idea that he's gone, I'm going to score today, give that to someone, I'll go to them when I score. If he's got them on both ends of the pitch, potentially.
Yeah. I would think there's a ball boy on each corner flag for a Solanke with the different masks. That's the logistics of it all.
Yeah, exactly. But, overall, I mean, the stats speak for themselves, really. I thought we were, dominant from an eye test point of view. I thought we were dominant from a stats point of view. We were very, very good overall. And I'm just going to run through those stats because it's not something I normally do, but I kind of had a little look and checked. We had, and I don't know if you checked this out yourself, we had 22 shots in total. Mm-hmm. We had 8 of those on target, which, I guess it backs up the point about the fact that from an eye point of view, we were a little bit, lapse in the finishing touch, really, in terms of getting more goals. But to have 22 shots in a game compared to their 6, by the way, 449 passes, which kind of just shows that they had a little bit more of the ball. But, in terms of the way that we had 13 tackles won, 17 aerial duels, and we blocked 7 of their shots. So defensively, whilst we're not going to talk about them individually, we're pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think they tried something like 22 crosses and we only allowed like 4 or 5 of them to actually hit somebody in the box. So, and that's really Tyler Bindon in the air is remarkable. We've talked before about the Blackpool game last year when he got shelled, being a huge moment for him. And just to add on to your stats block here, just to add the boring stats, expected goals way, way, way up as well. So 2.86 versus 0.3 for Wigan. That's huge. So basically when you say in single game XG, I say this every time, but take it with a grain of salt. But when you have, when you have when you score 2 and it feels like a bigger win, you say, oh, we could have scored 4 or 5 today. This is basically backing that up. We had over 3 expected goals on target. So this shows you again how well Tickle played. Mr. Tickle, dominant Tickle in goal. He really had his hands all over the ball. So Reading were really good, and the stats back that up.
Mr. Tickle's the one with the arms that go out like those, things that advertise cars, those inflatable wavy things.
Right, a wacky waving inflatable tube man. Yeah,
that's what in the Mr. Men books. That's what Mr. Tickle is, right? He's got long arms that Tickle obviously.
I think he's orange, so maybe he's Dutch.
Yeah. Could be actually. Key question for you: were we really good, or were they really bad?
That's a good question. I think like those two things are always like interrelated, right? So you can't really have.
True.
I mean, like sometimes you get two teams playing really well, but that often like means that the defense or the midfield is letting, teams back and forth, right, over and over again. So somebody is not having a good game if that is the case. I think Reading are really good, right? Like we've had Aziz, one of our most important performers, out for the first two games of the season, and so what we needed to cover that was noticeable and expected to some degree, but noticeable improvement from some of the other players, and we've got it. We got it from Kelvin directly on the other side, which is super useful because it means that we have a dynamic running threat even without Aziz. But on Aziz's side, we've had it with Elliott really improving and being able to affect play both in the middle third, for just progressing the ball down the field and finding another man. I spoke a little bit in my ratings about directional first touches with Elliott, whereby he's just very good at feeling the pressure, and if it's coming from his left side, he'll maybe take a step to his right or push the ball out in a different direction to kind of hide it. So really, yeah, I think that Reading are just good right now, and everyone understands their role in the team. I think that the 4-3-3 that we're using right now, quite narrow in the block, is just relatively simple for the new players coming in to pick up now that the fundamentals have been established by the players that are playing most weeks. So I just think Reading are good, and momentum's a hell of a thing. They're in the winning groove right now, and long may it continue.
I saw a tweet. I mean, I have to say, I didn't think Wigan were good at all. I really didn't, and I think looking at the way this season's going to go in this league, I would be quite concerned if I was a Wigan fan right now, based on that performance in terms of where they go from here, because they look like they were devoid of any real semblance of cohesion, of any real attacking threat, of any real understanding of their positions. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't see them in the previous two games they played this season so far in the Cup and the League, but that game really, for me, if I travelled down from Wigan to watch that, I'd be quite concerned. I saw a tweet from a Wigan fan, and to be honest, I've always found their fan base on the whole pretty switched on. They're few and far between, but they kind of know ball really. And one of them said that we've gone out and bought these players, and Reading haven't spent a penny. They've got they're in turmoil off the pitch, and they look as strong as I've ever seen a Reading team. And I thought, actually, do you know what? That's probably a good point, because this team's been together now for coming up 2 years. And, as we said time and again previously, we saw what they were capable of sort of coming into the back end of Christmas and into, January, February, and for the rest of the season. And we really, really did look like a very cohesive, very well-oiled machine. And I'm going to we'll talk a little bit about Charlie Savage to start with, because obviously we had one enforced change, in terms of Nibs being out with a back injury, which I'm sure people argue that's why you don't play players in the Cup and all the rest of it, but it is what it is. What did you make of his performance in the team? Obviously, he had by all accounts, a bit of a mixed bag against Colchester in the week. Scored an absolute belter of a goal. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to do that on his right foot ever again. But, in terms of the performance that we got against Wigan, what did you make of that overall?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it is interesting because he didn't play so we played Wigan at home not that long ago. It feels like it was back in December actually, but for whatever reason that doesn't feel that long ago to me, and I don't believe he started that day. I think we had Nibs and Craig in there with Wing. So it was interesting to see just a slightly different midfield lineup in general against them. I was a little bit concerned when the game started. I think I mentioned to you and Sim that I felt a booking was coming for Savage today, because Savage is energetic and he's physical, and he's got a chop in him like his dad, which is not a bad thing. You need some players with some grit. I think Wigan would have liked to have some players with some grit on Saturday, but he had a lot of ground to cover as well. And we've talked about it. Kelvin has switched, in his pressing duties to go and be part of that front group now. And that leaves the left side for what would be Harvey Knibbs. Now with Harvey Knibbs, you go, okay, fine. He's literally one of the best tacklers of the ball in the division. So yeah, he can do that. But with Savage, it's just a different kind of thing he's being asked to do. I think that Wigan did come more down his side. But, partly, the cross numbers being where they were for Wigan, very low success numbers gives you an idea of the fact that they were being harried when they were crossing from that side. And so I still think that, Knibbs is probably going to be coming back into the team once he's fit. And Savage really... Yeah, we talked about it last week on the pod. I feel a bit bad for Savage because he's kind of been, because he plays on the left side of midfield, he's kind of fallen into a position that's a little bit tough for Reading right now. A lot of our players play on the right side. We do a lot of our work down the right side, and that leaves a large room to cover on that left, like we're talking about. But hey, if he can keep contributing with goals, if he can show up in the box at the right time, then he's going to be, replacing some of Knibbs's output there, and long may it continue. And we've talked about this before. I think this was the first game where we got Craig, Elliott, and Savage all starting in the same game in the league anyway, and that's exciting because we've talked before. There's a world here where Wing is gone in a few years' time. Either because he begins to decline or because a better club takes him on, because he doesn't begin to decline, basically, and he's a great player. And if there's a future in which we have Savage, Elliott, and Craig all in our midfield, I think that's a perfectly fine future for Reading. So exciting to see that start, I guess, on Saturday.
I thought he did really well, and I think we're very, very lucky that we have a player of his quality to come in. He is a different player to Knibbs, as all the players are. They've all got their unique attributes. But the amount, look, you're not going to find any player that's fitter at the club than Charlie Savage, hands down. You're just not going to do it because the amount of ground that he is expected to cover in that role that he's currently playing is incredible. And there's not any players, I don't think, that will be able to get through that. He does so much work off the ball that I think goes unnoticed. And what is great for him is that he scored 2 goals in effectively 2 games this season. It doesn't matter where they come or how they come. Yeah, exactly. And that's a player that is confident. And, if I was Charlie Savage, coming to the Birmingham game and I'm not starting, as any other player would be, I'd be like, thanks a lot. I've done all this in pre-season and I'm not starting the first game of the season. And all he did there was just take it on the chin and apply himself. And that's what he did against Colchester. To my knowledge, I didn't see the game. I saw the goal, but I didn't see the extended highlights. But he certainly did that against Wigan. He didn't need any time to warm up whatsoever. Positioning-wise, that goal was absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent from a a run into box point of view. So I still stand by my, what I said in the article with all you guys at the start of the season. I think there's still loads more to come from. I really do. And I hope that it's with us. It is very difficult because, I've said, you've said, other people have said, time and time again, the central midfield is so congested. And that is where our best players are, really. You could talk about the centre backs, of course you could, but generally we're so stacked in that position that you'd kind of want to share some of that quality around a little bit more, really. And sticking on central midfield, let's talk about Ben Elliott, because some of the balls that he was playing through, particularly for the second goal, which I think the ball originally was intended for Sam Smith, who we talked about earlier. I mean, we're dealing with a different beast this season already in the games that we've seen. What, in your opinion, has been the biggest improvement, or what biggest improvement are you seeing in him currently compared to what we saw with Ben Elliott last season?
He uses his body to evade pressure consistently and over again. And so, this is the thing with Charlie Savage. I think he's I know this, you've asked me about Ben Elliott, and I'm just comparing the two as we talk about central midfielders. But for me, Savage is an amazing player with his feet. He can run forever, and his ball delivery is fantastic. Elliott's a really good player with his body, and that's almost like something that Savage has a little bit to improve on. But Elliott is so good at just like using his body to just like lightly move people off the ball to give the idea that he's going one way and then just turn back the other very quickly. He's great at what do you call sort of like a back foot take of the ball. So you wait for that ball to, as it's coming into you, to actually hit the further away foot rather than immediately intercepting it and turning. And just through that, you can kind of confuse the defender. You can buy yourself a little bit of space. He's just great at buying himself a little bit of space, Elliott. And yeah, he's just grown up and become a man within about 6 months. It is remarkable because he was nowhere with regards to getting into this first team, and now he does look undroppable. And yeah, that ball through for Smith, fantastic. Yeah, I mean the timing on that to make sure that Smith isn't offside, and I'm going to continue to choose to believe that he wasn't offside. Just really, really fantastic. Do you remember that goal that we scored last season where Wing punted the ball forward to about 5 yards offside Smith?
Yeah.
And it stood, and I just thought, well, League One, that's what League One do sometimes. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
well, did you talk about offsides? Did you see the Sunderland game where the guy was off from a corner?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
I'll have to send you that.
How do you manage that?
Really, really interesting. I like it when you get to that point where like there's obviously rules in place, but then there was this really nice discussion from like just football people going, okay, well the rules. I'll send it to you. Remind me.
All right, yeah, I got to see that.
It was interesting. I mean, I'm just looking at Ben Elliott's stats here. I mean, he made a total of 37 passes. One of those was key pass, which resulted in the through ball, which we talked about. 89.2% accuracy of those. Offensively, he's added a fair bit to his game. He's getting shots off in the games that he's playing now. He's had one each on in both the league games that we've had against Wigan and Birmingham, respectively. But for me, what he's doing, and you talk about his body, he's drawing fouls now. He got fouled 3 times against Wigan, and that's something that we need from these players, right? You know, if you're betting, please gamble responsibly, and you're looking at players that are going to win fouls, you know, Ben Elliott is now going to be one of those players that you're looking at and say, well, hold on a second, you know, teams are targeting him. And obviously Wigan did their homework from the Birmingham game where he was getting forward a little bit into those positions. You know, he, at the moment for me, he's kind of overshadowing what Lewis Wing brings to the team, right? Which is quite incredible, really. I know, again, they're doing different roles in that central midfield. And Lewis
Wing's changed a lot. That's going to that's going to put a pin in that because that's going to need some proper discussion at some point soon. But Wing's role has completely changed. And
that's going to be your next video, isn't it? That's what we're going to do.
Well, maybe, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I'll write that down, listeners.
I do try. Yeah. We're missing your videos, mate. I tell you, we want them back.
I know. I'm getting on with it.
Literally, ones of people have said, where are Ross's videos?
Thank you. With the ones
yeah, exactly. Just now, yeah. But right. No, seriously, I mean, I wanted to bring Lewis Wing in there because it does need a bit more of a, chat. Final player I want to talk about, and he's the obvious one, really. He's just on fire at the moment, and he's basically unstoppable, and that is Kelvin Bitterman. What? Similar question, really. What's going right for him? What's changed? Why is he the player that he currently is?
Really, really great first half, especially on Saturday. He was just completely unplayable. And Wigan had to send 2 players over to, they had to send an extra player over to deal with him, which meant that Mamadi Kamara kept finding space at the top of the box because there was no one left to mark him, basically. Kelvin was exceptional. Obviously, when he came into the team last year, he started up front, in a more center forward role, and had some good games. He's got, good footwork, and he can beat a man and make some space because he's just so big. It's really hard if you're like 3 inches shorter than him. It's so hard to actually defend the shot there because you've got to like anticipate his move, and then you've got to make up the ground on his leg, basically, which is just very difficult to do.
And the speed that he's running as well, it's like a winger in rugby, right? It is so difficult when they're moving at pace to stop him. It's the same with him.
he's got a target too, which is kind of the it's like the joint of like the 6-yard box and the bylines. He's always aiming for that kind of spot when he does drive towards the net. He sometimes cuts inside, like we've seen, because I think he is right-footed. When he came back into the team, he was playing, as a left winger, and that's what he's done since then. And there was some debate about whether we need a left winger. We can't quite rely on Kelvin. And I do still think that he's not a touchline winger, and we could use, a touchline winger in the team eventually, kind of like how Birmingham were able last week to switch up. They went from having an inside winger to having a proper touchline one. So I do think that's still a position of need. But in terms of like a sort of left half space winger, Kelvin has had an incredible start to the season. Like just as good as Femi at his best points last season, start to the season. And that's kind of like how, Femi can do a little bit of both. He can come in all the way from the byline, or he can kind of work in the box. I've been kind of finding Kelvin some similarities to kind of what Foden does on the right side of the pitch, just kind of hanging out in that half space. And that's kind of between, the wing space and the center space on that left side. So just really good. I think it's just sort of a positional change where he's been, allowed more into that space. And Ruben, through the movement of Nibs in the press and things like that, which is now Savage, he's allowed space for a Hib Hatcherman to use his legs, to use his power. And so far, no team has been able to come up with a real counter to that. So we'll see if he gets doubled up on more in coming weeks. But if he gets doubled up on and we have Aziz on the other side, good luck is all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, final word, and I hadn't written this down, but while you were talking, just made me think. Quick word on Kamara as well, who's basically done, 2 games now?
Yeah.
When he probably wouldn't have thought that would have happened. I thought he's been, again, look, I'm looking at this thing, I'm looking from Saturday, I'm thinking, all these people are going, we need players, we need this, we need that. Where are they getting in currently? And I'm not trying to get carried away. We've drawn one, should have won that game. We've won comfortably on Saturday, obviously a bit of a blip on Wednesday, but to be honest, I don't think anyone really cares about that. I'm looking at this team now, I'm thinking, where do these new players fit into this team? Currently, I'm not trying to be like we've won the league in August or whatever, because I don't think that's going to happen in May, let alone now, of course. But it's just so strong at the moment. It's so settled. Yeah. It's so cohesive. It's so confident. And with Kamara, he looks at the moment a little bit like a season pro. He should have scored on Saturday. He should have got his shots off a little bit quicker. But again, he's very young. He's very inexperienced, and he does all the basic stuff incredibly well.
A little further on your point, I agree, Kamara does do all the basics very well. He's slotted in really, really nicely. I do think he'll be replaced by Aziz, just because Aziz is the more complete player. But yeah, Kamara has taken that role very well. One thing to say though, and I want to say maybe I was wrong about something. I was talking about, I know, right? I was talking about left back being needed at the start of the season. I guess not. I guess we don't need a left back, because Jerry Dorset, despite having 0 preseason, is suddenly a really good left back.
And he really is. Again, we could, most improved player this season, if they're carrying the way they're going, is going to be impossible to pick. It's going to be very, very difficult. Yeah, you're right on Dorset. I think he was very, very good.
And he's sliding in.
Very basic player, and that's what we need. We've always needed these players to do the basics and then go from there. Historically, we've not had players that have done the basics very well at all. So, that was really pleasing. All good, all positive.
Do you want me to do my last little bit on average positions?
Yes, I do. Thank you for reminding me, guys.
That's all right. I wanted to get that one out there. Yeah, I learned a fun new word this week, and I'm going to see if I can get it into this. I learned elbow backs, which means somebody that kind of plays, you get like Zinchenko, Alexander-Arnold, Michael Craig. These are all comparable players, obviously. But so basically an elbow back is a player who plays as like a fullback, but then also inverts into the midfield in build up or whatever. And so average positions have been really interesting to look at so far this season. And so I think we talked about them a little bit last week against Birmingham, whereby, yes, Birmingham had a lot more of the ball, but Reading's players had a higher average position than the Birmingham players because they were able to just push them back over and over again. So it kind of gives you a sense of how the pitch is tilted, which is really interesting. This week, it was kind of interesting to look at Craig versus Dorset in the average positions, just because we had a lot more of the ball this week. So we were able to split and Benge and Bindon and kind of do what we want to do and build up rather than having to react to the opposition. And so we saw Craig actually staying pretty far out wide, I thought, more out wide than I expected. But then if you look at the average positions graph and you go on my Twitter account or X account, whatever, and see the graphics, you can see that Craig is a little more inverted. He's a little more in that midfield, and Dorset is a little bit further out towards the byline. So you can see those tactics actually starting to manifest in the average positions of the player on the pitch. When it gets really interesting, is you can see Michael Craig's touch map versus his average position. And while his average position stays in a pretty right back sort of shape, his touch map is all in that sort of inverted center mid kind of spot. So he gets a lot more, in the middle. So he's playing the whole game in that right back spot and in that midfield, but he touches the ball in the midfield and he defends on that right back spot. So it's really interesting to see. There are some cool graphics. I didn't get all of them. I found some of them, and then there was someone, Ed Riding, found the touch map for Craig. But yeah, it's just really interesting to see, and we're getting some really high level stuff from these coaches, really high level stuff, and it's just exciting to document. Yeah,
you're right. I mean, I think those average positions are really, really interesting. I had a good look at them, and it's just nice to see how disciplined these players are. And again, you know, anyone listening to this that's outside of Reading Football Club will go, well, players should be disciplined. But, we haven't had a lot of disciplined players over the last few years. And this team is incredibly disciplined on the ball and off the ball. So, yeah, have a little look at that. Maybe we can repost them again, Ross.
Yeah, I'll do something. Maybe this should be a video. Sounds shorter than the Lewis Wing one. That one sounds like a lot of research.
Yeah. Ease yourself back into it and then go from there.
Right, yeah.
I mean, moving away, still focused on Saturday. We're kind of done with the Wigan game now. Fantastic result. Really, really pleased with it. Looking forward to the next couple of games that we've got, particularly on Saturday away to Wrexham, which we'll talk about in the last part of this pod. But obviously, we had some people in attendance at the ground, and they were not shy about being there. We all know who we're talking about. We don't want to tempt too much fate, but Mr. Couhig and his entourage, his partners, his group, his squad, whatever you want to call them, were all there as well. Todd Trusclair was there too, and They were very, very active, shall we say. They had a very prominent position in what I call it the middle box, which I guess is the chairman's. I think it is the chairman's suite in theory.
I always just know the bit that Medeski sits in.
Yeah, that's and it was Dyes, or is still Dyes technically. But he was in the box. He was in between West Upper and West Lower. He was having a lot of photos taken. He met Sir John himself, which was great to see because that's not happened previously with the current regime. What do you make of the publicness of it all, Ross?
I'd like to think that it's somewhat related to an understanding that there hasn't been enough communication from club figures or at least that's some of the fan perception in the last few years, and certainly through the Dye regime. So it seems like an attempt to it could be an attempt to start putting that right immediately. And there was a tweet on Friday night before the game talking about it being the start of their relationship with the town and the club and the fans and all those kinds of things. So I think that's good. I think that regardless of what we think of it, we never got this sort of invitation from Dye necessarily. So, I don't think he was ever particularly concerned about his relationship with the fans. I could be wrong, but so yeah, I mean, it's a good start, isn't it? It would be nice to have it fully announced. We're recording this on Monday, August 19th, almost 9:00 UK time, and we don't have anything yet, but yeah, it's a good start, I would say.
I said it in the video after the game, but for me, they just need to be consistent. They need to be fair, and they need to give as much communication as they possibly can, because the fan base has been completely starved of that. And actually, and I know that Dye went to, I think it was Wigan. Ironically, he was in a pub in Wigan, and he's done these kind of random things before where he sort of ended up at these places with fans. But with Rob coming in theory, he's going to understand the need for PR, and they have really got to get off to a good start in terms of getting people on side, both from what happened in March, but also just being really clear on this is what we want to do. It's not going to be an instant fix, but just those little things that are going to get people on side. And, it helps that the team are doing well and they're settled and the manager is settled and everyone is quite happy with that at the moment. But from my point of view, it doesn't need to be root and branch stuff straight away, but it just needs to kind of real focus on those basics. I think Sim in his piece after the game said the stadium's looking pretty grubby, and it is. It's not, it's not a good, certainly from a seated bowl point of view and from the concourse and coming up to the ground, it's not particularly attractive at all. The pitch looks absolutely amazing, and credit to the ground staff.
Yeah, they do a great job.
Like a carpet, it just looks amazing. It looked great. But, there are so many little things they could do to improve, the stuff for people that are going at the moment, really. And the key thing is to look at it. If I was them, I'd go, right, I'm going to employ someone to look at our customer database and go, right, who's not been for a year? Who's not been for 2 years? Who's not been for 3 years?
Right.
Why not? If they're local and they can, in inverted commas, get to the ground with ease, why they're not coming? Let's go and ask them. Let's go and ask a sample of those people and say, what is it about Reading Football Club that's turned you off from coming to the games? And go from there, really, and kind of work backwards from that. Then, in 2 weeks' time, I'll be complaining that it's too busy and I've got a queue for everything. But, we want people in the ground to support these players. We want people in the ground to support the manager. And I'd be looking at it and saying, what can we do now, in the next 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever, to be able to get people back into the ground. And, people go, the team's got to be better, of course, but we're in League One for the foreseeable. Let's try and make something of that. And bring people back to this football club, which is ultimately theirs in the first place. So that's what I'd be doing anyway. But it was good. It was good to see him. I didn't see him personally, but I kind of saw him. I could see his, light blue shirt that he was wearing and the people around him and stuff. And it was positive. And all the stuff on social media they've been doing, I think is needed. I think people need to be excited. So
let's hope it's done. I think my overriding thought is, the encouraging thing is that the Wycombe fans don't seem to have much of a bad word to say about him. And they did, make it into the championship under his tenure, which was a good achievement for them. So, I mean, I think as long as his ambition for the club matches what I think a lot of the fan bases is, which is to be at minimum a championship club, then great. But yeah, I think, if he wants to be a success in Reading, which it seems like he really does, we need to be, back to somewhat of our former glories by the time that he moves on, and that will really solidify his relationship with the fans. And hey, he's been granted, like you said, I think it's a great point, a good chunk of positive momentum right now with the way that the club's playing, and that is a way to bring fans back. So hey, we'll see how it goes, and I'm encouraged by like I say, the way that the Wycombe fans talk about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, in any other circumstance, if you went sort of 20 miles down the road or whatever, you'd be pretty miffed that he was, your previous owner was buying another football club. But no one from what I can see, has really come out and been absolutely livid, apart from podcasts, which we won't name, from Wycombe's end. But, is what it is. We need a fresh start. We need a renewal, and hopefully these guys can give it to us, really. Right. Let's move on to the mailbag. It's positively bulging. It's grotesquely big this week. So we'll get into that and see what we can do. We will be right back after this short break.
Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZCZ Films. Remember, if you want to get involved in sponsoring the show, drop us an email to thetilehurstend@gmail.com.
Right, welcome back to episode 386, not episode 385. That is still available wherever you get your podcast. That was Ross and Ryan, and what a blooming good job they did as well. Ross has just seen the size of the mailbag off air and let out an expletive. So we're gonna pick and choose some of the stuff, because we have covered a lot of this already. There were quite a few comments about Ben Elliott. Jamin Lee, welcome back, sir. Hope you are keeping well in your local journalism retirement. You're now in the big time, so thank you for dropping by. He's just said Benjamin Njugu Elliott. I hope I've said that right as his middle name, but he said the full name anyway. It's funny because when people call me Benjamin, I know I'm in trouble, but clearly here Benjamin is a term of endearment. So anyway, Stuart, Little Stew 25, he says the rise of Ben Elliott, and then he put that little emoji where the hands are going up, like almost.
The praise.
The praise. That's it. The praise.
Yeah.
Tom Hill darkens the mood. Imagine my shock, Tom. Goodness me. Why don't you write some articles for a change, mate? Eh?
He's written 2 this week already. To be
fair. I know.
He does way more than I freaking do.
He's doing a good job, bless him. We need to get him back on.
You're going to do some video when I can be bothered to get off my arse.
Yeah, exactly. But Tom is. I mean, if you haven't read him, Tom is propping us up with a lot of good stuff at the moment, and he's a young writer. He's just started out. Like, we all get paid for this. We don't. And we don't. Well, do you, Ross? Do you get paid?
I don't get paid for
that.
No,
okay, good. Thank God for
that.
that.
Just because he's young doesn't mean we can't slag him off. So whatever.
Exactly.
Read out his stupid question.
But listen, it's not even. It is a question, actually. Anyway, the articles he writes are really good. Check him out. He's on Twitter, Thomas_H_1871. So give him a follow if you want. Given Rob, I don't know where we're going with this one. Given Rob Couhig is 75 years old. That's why I'm laughing. How long do you see his involvement in Reading lasting?
Freaking youngins, they're just like ambulance chasing. They're like, when's this going to be turned over to me?
Yeah. I think we know what he's getting at. I think he's probably looking at it and going, from a business point of view, how much more do you need from a business point of view at that age, I guess, right?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And I think that I don't even know if these are rumors or just like the general expectation is that, and this comes from sort of like what happened with Wycombe and again, like the age, I guess. But Rob Couhig seems to be in a period of his life where he enjoys working on these projects for a few years, 3 to 5 years or whatever, and then leaving them in a better place and moving on to the next thing. I could be so wrong about that. I don't know the guy. Like this is all out of my arse, I guess. But my understanding anyway is the expectation is he would take the club for a few years, lead them in a better place, and then find an owner. And that's what happened at Wycombe. He bought the club, moved them into a better place. I think he had ambitions to move on that were linked to Wycombe's training ground, and obviously Bearwood eventually. But when he left the club with a new owner that obviously the EFL had vetted, but it seemed like he had vetted as well. So yeah, I think that's the idea. But again, I'm a 30-year-old man. I don't really know what the business interests of a 75-year-old man are. Maybe he wants to be there forever. Who knows? Maybe this is it. This is the club he wants,
Maybe
to retire with.
Yeah, I mean, look, we can all speculate, can't we? He hasn't even spoken to anybody officially about this because it's not been done and dusted as of this point, as of 20:57 on Monday evening. UK time, by the way.
I did say to Ben before we got on air, sorry, that like, I don't want this, obviously, but it would be the funniest thing now if he didn't actually join.
Well, yeah, I mean, and as I said to you,
what a
I don't know why I'm
weekend he
laughing,
got.
but just fold the club, like literally just fold it. Just go, do you know what? Whatever. Like, get to that point. But I mean, I just don't see a man of his success in, whatever, 55 years or however long he's been in business of doing this, that he would be that ridiculous to do all this without him going, it's like 99.999% sorted. So yeah, but none of us know. And apart from him. I did, just an extension, I did kind of put another question up about what people thought of him mixing with fans and the photos and all this kind of stuff. And we had some good replies, really. Chris Scott, who I know listens to the show but never chips in, so it's nice to have something from him. To me, it's a positive sign. What we've been crying out for 6+ years. Of course, there's that 0.1% where it's not being announced officially, but believe that's because they had to fly back to the US, so want it all to be done, as won't be here Wednesday, which is probably a good point, really. Mark Sugar, nice PR, but I think the time to judge will be when he has a proper chance to have sit-down interviews with local in-house media and outlines short, long-term vision. I mean, that's a really good point in terms of getting those ideas across, really.
I did see in one picture of him in front of the big badge at Bearwood that there's a microphone attached to his lapel.
Yeah.
So it would seem that he's done some sort of communications for the club, which I guess we'll see soon, hopefully.
Sooner rather than later, really. Laurie Johnston, that's something different. We'll come back to that. Georgie Dawes, I think the transfer window will be interesting regarding intent. Can we keep our big players and add a few squad players? If so, this could be an interesting season with Couhig.
I did actually, just on that quickly, I think we turned down an offer for Aziz from Stoke this week, which is interesting. I mean, like, it's good that we turned down an offer and that's all good, but that would suggest to me that the Plymouth stuff is dead. It's dead in the water. It's Plymouth. Sorry,
he's not really a Rooney player, is he? To be honest,
no. Right? Yeah, exactly. So I don't think Rooney can speak Spanish either. So I don't think he'll like him as much.
Pointless. Russell Bevan picks up on your point. His Bearwood Fire he had a lapel mic, so it seems fairly obvious to me that will be released as soon as announced, and we can then have some idea about his thoughts. MJG has to be better than Die. I will take an owner that talks to the fans, pays things on time, has a decent wage budget, and doesn't spend much in League One. I have a feeling that if once we get back into the Championship, he will look to sell again. I think that's a good point. I'd be very surprised if we got to the Championship next season, but you never know. Alex Carlin, don't want to let myself get excited until the club's statement. Beer, Biscuits and Bulbs, that's a great account name, that is. Anyone remember Michael Knighton doing keepy uppies before his patch of Man United? Hope those publicity stunts go better than that one did. That's good, that. I like that. Alistair, I love it, but there's always that thought that if I was in his position, I would want to get the deal done first. Generally pretty positive. Like, people are kind of, they're all right with it. Our benefactor Valdemar, he says, I want to know if they're going to vote for Trump or Harris, then we'll really know what we're dealing with. Well, wow. Yeah, I mean, we're going to try and keep politics out of that.
We're going to leave that out, yeah. I'll just say he's from Louisiana, so
exactly. But look, I mean, overall, it's pretty positive, and actually that's a good thing, really. So yeah, lots of stuff on Rob and his team, and hopefully, once it's all done, he'll be wanting to come on a podcast like this one and have a chat. Who knows?
I'm also going to just quickly retract any trash talking of Louisiana. It's a lovely place. I've got friends from New Orleans. It's nice. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine.
Great food. Great food.
They got a street where you can. It's basically England. You can walk up and down it and drink.
There you go.
So there you go. If you've ever wanted to see the southern US version of Liverpool on a Friday night, Louisiana, New Orleans.
It's a bit far to travel now, isn't it? I bet they haven't got Weatherspoons, have they?
Wow, no Weatherspoons. That's a good point. So, yeah. What's even
not that I'm endorsing Weatherspoons. I just mean it's cheap if you want.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the mailbag, the regular mailbag. Laurie Johnston, he says, considering how small our squad is and the recent injury to Nibs, is it worth us focusing on getting into the top 6 and promotion with the league campaign at the mercy of cup competitions.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one's already gone straight off the bat. So we did take it all the way, granted, but that's gone. What do you think? Are we doing a couple this season and getting rid of the cup competitions as early as possible?
I think we talked about it a little bit. Like it might be fun to win a pizza cup, but I don't care that much. I'm much more interested in the league at the moment. I think that's kind of, I mean, like I guess like if I care about any of them, I care about the pizza cup because that seems attainable. The FA Cup, I don't know if we need. I mean, maybe we need money still, so the FA Cup could be good if we get drawn against a big side or whatever, like we did a few years ago now, but
that blooming starts in November though, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm just like I'm much more invested in the league because I just think that we're not as far away as some people do. I know that obviously Colchester was a weird result and a bit of a disappointing blip and maybe made us think about whether the depth was there. But I just think that, that was more about you change out the entire back line and you're going to have some weirdness. And I don't even know if Harley Dean and Carney had played together before. So, like
it was all a bit odd, really, wasn't it?
It's just all a bit odd. Yeah, I think the team selection, it was a little bit off there with that one. So I think you can chalk that up to Sellers rather than the depth. And I'm not really blaming him for that because he fixed it pretty quickly. So it is what it is.
I mean, on the league, Sam Richards says 2 excellent league performances. I hope as a fan base we can just enjoy the ride rather than talking about title playoff challenges. Ross?
Yeah, not going to happen, mate. I'm
going
to be here all season until we're mathematically it's not happening in October.
Listen, he says, and I quote, "It puts unnecessary pressure on a young group. We are 2 to 3 injuries away from the squad looking threadbare. 3 or 4 reinforcements would be massive." And also, shut up, Ross, you idiot, is what he signed that tweet off with.
Right. No. We've got
that's pretty bad, Sam, actually. We don't like that language on this show.
We've got a squad of hungry hippos, and they're going to consume all of the points balls this season. Don't you worry. 3 lovely 3 points balls.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know how good we are.
That when this club has now been playing well for quite a while, and so there will be a point when the fan expectation kind of slips into, oh, okay, we're actually not too bad here, and we start to get frustrated when we can't, win games. Like I'm remembering a game against Wickham in the Championship during the Pauno season when we just couldn't break down that team, and it was very frustrating. And at the start of the season, I don't think that many of us thought we were going to make promotion that season or get to the playoffs. But by midway through the season, it became frustrating. So, you can become a victim of your own success for sure. And I take his point for sure about not putting pressure on the players. But I think that hunger is there in the squad. So hopefully that keeps them pushing forward.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with what Sam's saying. I don't see many people, apart from you, Ross, talking about promotion and everything else. I just think people are so, and I might be wrong, but I just think people are so scarred from everything over the last couple of years that they're just quite happy to have some fun. And, my perception of being in the stadium on Saturday was there was a lot of fun. It was just a really good atmosphere. The beer in the Eamon Dolan stand was warm, right? But no one really cared because it was just a bit of a laugh. Whereas last season there would have been, not riots, that's the wrong word to use currently, but people would have been kicking off. Do you know what I mean? People would be aggressively handing it back and going, "Give me a cold one." Whereas everyone was from where I stood was quite happy to drink it. So look, it's little things like that really, and it was a lot of fun being around the stadium and in the stadium on Saturday. I have to say I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow night, which we'll talk about in a bit. Georgie Dawes again, prolific tweeter this week. Great win in all aspects from the team setup and selection, from Sellers to the individual player performances. Personally thought it was great to see Savage come back into the team and put in a decent performance, as I was a bit worried before kickoff that Nibs was injured. He's out for 4 weeks, Ross. So you'd anticipate that Savage would just play in that role.
You'd anticipate. And that's probably good. Honestly, he probably could do with a little run in the team in that kind of position. I do think that Nibs is so important to how Reading play that he will return when he's fit. But, many things can change by then. Maybe we've got another injury. Maybe a different player is in form. So if Savage, continues to play well, then maybe he becomes undroppable as well, like we're talking about Elliott at the moment. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen, and good to have options.
Final one, Alex Bykowski, hope I pronounced that right, sir, lives in Milwaukee. He's from Milwaukee.
Yeah. Nice.
And I've got a Bucks t-shirt on as well today.
Yeah.
Go Bucks. I love basketball. He talks about the email that he sent, and we have got that, Alan, and we're going to cover that probably in a later episode, probably next week when we've got a little bit more time. We haven't waffled too much to go over that, but we have got it. We're not ignoring you. We are going to come back to that because we absolutely adore an email, as you know, on this pod. One of the questions we asked was, what's the best American animal? He has said raccoon. They're clever, have opposable thumbs, and are great at getting into everyone else's garbage and making a huge mess in the process.
That's the thing.
Ross, best American animal. Shoot.
He's right. That's the problem. He's kind of ruined my game here because he's right. Like, they're really cool. They're really weird. I don't know how to... They're just neat. Like, I don't really know how to describe them necessarily. Yeah, do you want another American animal? What's cool? We get these things called Fisher cats, and they scream at night. So, look forward to that. And then the other one I'll mention all right, animals that make a shit ton of noise. So a raccoon rummaging through your thing. A Fisher cat screams at night for whatever reason. And then there's a type of duck sort of thing, right? It's called a loon. And
Minnesota, the loons,
and like the loons in Minnesota. All right, and their noise, their like call is very like iconic and it just sounds very American. So I'll find you a clip, or I'll get Ryan to piece together a clip with this, with that in there.
Can we maybe do it as the intro next week rather than Latin? We can have like a loon call.
Yeah, all right, that sounds good. We'll do the loon call to start off next. It sounds very American, like it sounds kind of like Native American sort of like style. So I'll find that audio for you and get Ryan on the job.
Okay. Well, sadly, you're both wrong because it's American alligator because it's literally got the name of the country, and they are dinosaurs, and they're just flat heads, like they're just.
There's American black bears up here, though. So, I mean, you get those too.
Near you?
Yeah, you get bears around here. And you get bears, moose, bobcats, mountain lions, all that kind of fun stuff.
You don't get alligators, though. It's too far up.
No, it's too far up. Yeah. You do get bald eagles up here. That's arguably my favorite thing. Those are. I didn't know you could make a bird that big, but you can. So, there you go.
They are big, aren't they?
They are big. So, got the wingspan of Jerry L. Dorset.
I have this habit of just talking. I've just thrown my pencil down in disgust at what that chink was because it literally hit my glass. It's not smashed, don't worry. But we have this habit of just talking about absolute nonsense, and then Ross will just go, but we're here to talk about Reading Football Club. So let's compare a flying animal to Jerry L. Dorset.
It just suddenly struck me that it had been a while. I think a bald eagle would make an excellent elbow back. True. Anyway,
let's that's the mailbag done and dusted. The morbidly obese mailbag that we had. Thank you very much for all your points. We're going to move into the preview. We're going to do a quick one on. It's difficult to kind of preview the game tomorrow night, but we'll do it anyway, and then we'll talk about Wrexham at the weekend coming up. So short break, and then we'll be back.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you R's!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
Right, welcome back to the final part of episode 386 of the Tilehurst 10 podcast. You are joining myself, Ben Thomas, and of course Rob. Got Rob on the brain. Ross Webber. To talk about the next two games. We are up against West Ham under 21s in the Cup, which is the something Motors Trophy.
The car one with the kids in it. That's what it
yeah.
is.
So we're in a league or group format at the moment. First one of those is tomorrow night at the Stade de SCL, 7:00 kickoff. Tickets are obviously still available, but they are only in the West Stand lower. They are not in the East Stand or the Sir John Stand this time round. So West Stand lower for that one. Tickets are pretty reasonable actually. I think they're £10 for adults and like everything else is concessions, but really, really cheap. So if you can get there, sort of get along to that and have a look and see how we do. Going to run through the team sheet that Reading had for the under-21s game against Middlesbrough, and they were currently playing. Haven't checked the final score. Matthew Rowley, Boyd Beercroft, Kai Sauce, Jack Senger, Michael Stickland, Louis Holzman, Maddox McMillan, Kai Garrett, Rhys Evans, Basil Tumer, and of course Joe Barrow. I don't know why I'm saying Joe Barrow because it's the first time I've seen that name, but they were the starting 11 in that team. You would expect then that none of those players would be starting tomorrow night. Would have thought we might have seen Louis Holzman, Jack Senger, and Michael Stickland involved, maybe even Tumer too. However, they are currently playing or have been playing tonight up in Middlesbrough, so it's very, very unlikely that they will make the squad, which means there will be a little bit of a shake around with the squad. Ross, who do you think will start tomorrow night?
Well, I'd like to see Rashisha if those players are out. And I do think it is worth noting that Holzman and Stickland, I thought they'd be a bit closer to the team at this point. So maybe there's physical development or something that needs to happen there. But, it's just kind of interesting. And Tumer, I maybe would have liked to see as well. Just I think that pace is an asset. But yeah, I guess so. In terms of people who can actually start, I'd like to see Rashisha start for sure. And then it gets tough, doesn't it? Because I think I want to see a Brafer start, and I think it would be a good idea to start Kanu again because we need to kind of start building that confidence up for him again. And I think playing against the West Ham U21s will be good because physically he's not going to be outmatched by part of what was difficult for him against Colchester was fighting up against a pretty physical team. And look, new young defenders have those issues sometimes. So I think I'd like to see Kanu back, maybe see Osho as well, rather than seeing Harley Dean. But I think Dean still offers something with this group if we're not going to play Bindon and Mbenge, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking over the Colchester game from last week. A week tomorrow. 4-3-3 as we'd expect from this club, really.
I think it's going to be like that now across the board forever.
And it's just going to look for players to do that, to replicate what's going on in the inverted commas, the first team, because these are technically first team fixtures. CBC in goal, Osho at right back, Harley Dean, Kanu, and then we had a Brafer, and then we had Harvey Nibbs, Lewis Wing, and Charlie Savage across the middle. Andre Garcia, Jaden Wareham, and Adrian Akande. Might have got a few of those positions wrong, but that was the starting lineup basically. You wouldn't imagine that Charlie Savage will play. Harvey Nibbs definitely won't. I think the defence might be as it was. I think you're right in terms of Kanu and a Brafer playing. Up top is an interesting one as well.
I think I'd like to see Garcia get another go pretty far forward because I think he's been somewhat useful, especially in the press. I think I'd like to see Garcia fairly high up again, and maybe Kamara, because I think if Aziz is going to come back into the squad, then Kamara needs to start first.
You would imagine. That midfield of Harvey Nibbs, Lewis Wing, and Charlie Savage won't be that midfield tomorrow. I'd be gobsmacked if Lewis Wing and Charlie Savage start the game. I really will.
I might expect Savage. Just because I think that they want to get him as it would be, but I think they want to get him as many reps as possible in that spot right now. So I think that Ruben doesn't like to completely throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of the lineups. Like he likes to keep a few experienced players in. So I wouldn't be surprised if Savage becomes one of those players.
He kind of emptied the bench against Colchester. Brought on Tyler Bindon pretty early on for Kanu. And Benge, Elliott, Kamara, Big Kelvin, they all came on. So he wasn't afraid to kind of chop and change it, really. We'll have to see. I think the most intriguing part will be the team selection. I couldn't tell you anything about West Ham under 21s. Couldn't tell you which first team squad players will be playing in that for them. No idea at all. Final part of the pod, then, probably the most important part, is the return to league action next Saturday against Wrexham. 2,000 of us, I think, going up there. Absolutely gutted to be missing it. Sadly, I can't go. Ross isn't going anywhere, but he said that he is going to try his hardest to get the game shown on his local TV in his local bar. Is there such thing as a local TV? I don't know, whatever. What I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have anything against Wrexham personally. I think what the owners have done has been fantastic. And as I said previously, there is not a single Reading fan alive who wouldn't want what Wrexham have currently got. They've obviously had sort of bumps in the road, and I think they've upset fans along the way in terms of the change they've tried to implement. But they are doing wonders for Wrexham as a brand and wonders for Wrexham as a place. And ultimately, that's what you want for your town and your football club, isn't it? Really. So, all the best to them moving forward. Really. However, we have got to go there and try and get some points. Wickham, went up there. They lost 3-2. Really, really great start to Wrexham's campaign. They then went across to Sheffield United, or, across. Yeah, I suppose it is really from Wrexham, isn't it? Sort of a little bit up. Lost 4-2 in the Cup. I know Phil Parkinson was absolutely livid with the refereeing in that game. And then most recently drew against Bolton 0-0. I watched parts of it. They were battered in that game, really. They found that really, really difficult. And as we said before on our pre-season preview, whatever you want to call it, Bolton are going to be up there, and it looked like they're going to be okay this season, really, in terms of how they're going to play. So, mixed bag for Wrexham to start with, not horrendous for a newly promoted team. Expectation is very much on them from the wider world, Ross. Do you think that we have enough in our lockers to go up there and smash them about a bit?
Yeah, so I do. I think that Reading should be looking to win this game again. We spoke about it a little bit before the Wigan game in the preview. What Wigan wanted to do and what they tried to do was to really aerially assault Reading. And you could see that through, their stats through the first week. They did a lot of that kind of thing. And then through the second week as well against Reading, we cut out a lot of crosses against Wigan. Now, Wrexham are a team that have somewhat of a similar play style. They're very direct. They like to hit the ball long a lot. They hit 19 accurate long balls against Bolton, and that was only 31% of their overall attempts. So they really like to hit it long. They were offside 4 times as much as Bolton. So you can tell, they're trying to jump early and they're trying to go. But I think that kind of plays into the hands of Mbenge and Bindon, who are good in the air and good at mopping up. And I think as long as they get the physical beating of Wrexham early on in the air, then I really think Wrexham are going to struggle against Reading's press and their ability to move, and just the number of weapons that we have. So I think this is a game that you target to win. Personally, I understand that Wrexham have some momentum too, and they'll have a great atmosphere there. And if this is a draw, I wouldn't be super surprised as well. But if Reading score more than a couple of goals, if they score 2 goals or more, I think they should not tidy this one up pretty nicely. I think that Wrexham are a team that Reading are designed to stop, basically, and yeah, I see them doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it would be great if we could have a season where we pick up draws or whatever away from home. And that's not me being, unambitious or whatever, but then, win our home games or pick up as many points as we can at home across the season, we'll be fine, and we've started the season very, very well, I have to say. We looked at this block of games and said that's going to be difficult. I think we've kind of surpassed our tally of what we thought we were going to get so far in the 2 games that we've had. So, that is a real, real positive for us. And yeah, why should we be fearful? Shouldn't, go in there and do what we need to do. We've got some good players, fantastic fans. Going to be very, very loud when they go up there. It's a long old journey up to North Wales from here. But, go and enjoy it. Go and enjoy playing in these games and go and enjoy taking it to these teams that have the pressure on themselves, really, And as we've said, there's no pressure on us really, apart from Ross that's putting on the team. You know, we just got to go and get results from these games and do the best we can. And so far, the team are working really, really hard. You know, there's nothing to dislike about the way this team are playing, and there's nothing to be concerned about with this group of players, either individually or collectively. So, you know, long may that continue. We will see you back next week with what I hope is going to be the best news of all. I really, really hope that that's going to be the case. And the next time, I hope that the next time...
I thought you were going to say, I hope it'll be episode 387, and we actually remember the start.
You know, I hope it's going to be episode 386.5, because I would love to do an emergency pod in inverted commas just to talk about, you know, what we all hope is going to happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Ross, as always, thank you so much for joining me and being part of this. And I hope that you continue to have a good week. I say continue; it's just Monday, isn't it?
It's Monday, isn't it? Well, it's going to be a good week. It's back to the fall, the autumn, you know, practice schedule for coaching. Nice. So yeah, good week. This.
I love that word. It's great. Fall. Fantastic.
Fall. Yeah, I like fall. It's good. Anyway, moving on. Anyway, have a good... not moving on. Have a good week, listeners. See you next week. Look at the graphs.
Have a good one. Enjoy the games this week if you're going to them. Obviously, West Ham at home tomorrow, and then Wrexham away on Saturday. We will, if not before, we'll see you back starting next week. Hopefully, we'll see you a little bit before with a shorter one. That's basically us drinking loads of beers and going, yay, party time. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. All the best. Take care. And come on, you Oz.